This day in sports history. This episode is brought to you by the Sterling Soap Company. Sterling Soap is 100% natural and with a variety of bath soaps, shave soaps, beard balm, lotions, cologne, and many more personal care products in a large variety of scents, you're sure to find something that's perfect for you or that special someone in your life. Check them out at sterlingsoap.com. Well, hey there, and welcome back to another edition of This Day in Sports History. I'm your host, Steve White, and This Day in Sports History is a member of the Sports History Network. You can find more podcasts, more great info at sportshistorynetwork.com. It's August 8th, and on this day in 1905, Ty Cobb's father was killed by his mother, and as you can imagine, it left him with permanent mental scars. Ty Cobb was an 18-year-old kid playing in the minor leagues when a telegram arrived on the 9th, telling him that his father was dead. It read, "Come home at once. Your father dead in shooting accident. Hurry." A friend of his from Royston, Georgia, had sent it to him. Cobb was playing about 100 miles down the road with the Augusta Tourists of the South Atlantic League at this point. Cobb rushed home, and when he got there, he walked into a chaotic scene of grieving relatives, policemen, news reporters, and curious onlookers outside, wondering what had happened. What came out was more than a bit shocking for this small town in Georgia, and once the whole story came out, it seemed like someone, most assuredly, was destined to die on this night. It took a while, but Ty came to learn that his mother, Amanda, had mistakenly shot William Herschel Cobb, thinking he was attempting to break into the house. 2 shots had been fired from the bedroom through the window, killing him on the front porch. Now, why was he lurking on the front porch? Well, here is where it gets a little bit salacious. William thought his wife was cheating with another man. Earlier in the evening, he had told his wife he was going out to their farm and would not be returning until the morning. But that had been a ruse in an effort to catch his wife and her lover in the act. Once night had fallen and the stars had come out, W.H. doubled back to the house. He pulled his pistol out and apparently was intent on killing the other man and, more than likely, Amanda as well. He crept up on the porch and peered into the window. Amanda, thinking it was a burglar, fired the 2 killing shots. Now, the police had their suspicions pretty much from the beginning. The story Amanda was telling did not seem to match what they were seeing with their own eyes. She was arrested and charged with manslaughter, but was later acquitted at trial in March the following year. Cobb was devastated by the loss of his father. He told his biographer Al Stump, "My father had his head blown off when I was 18 years old. I didn't get over it. I've never gotten over it." When Ty had embarked on his baseball career, his father had not been supportive, preferring his son to go to college and go into business. Once his father relented, though, he told him to go for it, but "I want to tell you one other thing. Do not come home a failure." He put that advice to work for him, and 3 weeks after his father's tragic death, he made his major league debut with the Detroit Tigers. Now, Cobb has the reputation of being a mean and disagreeable person, and it is definitely well earned. He hated anybody who was not white, Southern, and Protestant. He once choked the wife of a baseball field groundskeeper after an argument over the condition of a practice field with her husband that she tried to break up. Now, it is interesting that Cobb truly thought the idea of him being a hateful person really to be more legend than fact. He admitted later in his life that the loss of his father, and then how his Tigers teammates had hazed him during the short time he was with them at the end of the '05 season, really affected him. He actually spent 44 days in a sanitarium during the 1906 season dealing with the tragedy, his grief, and his anger. Instead of coming out with a better understanding of his emotions, it turned him into the angry person he went on to be. This episode is brought to you by Firefly Books, and with you being a sports fan just like me, here's 2 suggestions for your next great sports read. If you love basketball, then you need to add Dave Zarum's book, NBA 75, The Definitive History. Uncover untold stories of triumph, controversy, and the greatest stars of the game. From the league's humble beginnings to its modern glory, it is a courtside seat to 75 years of NBA history. And if you're a golf fanatic, then you gotta check out Matt Adams' book, The Golf Round I'll Never Forget. I've used it as a reference in this podcast over the past year for lots of stories that I've done, and I can tell you from experiencing it, this is a great book. Relive 50 of golf's most memorable moments through the eyes of the legends themselves. It's the closest you'll ever get to walking the fairways with the greatest to ever play the game. Grab your copy of NBA 75 or The Golf Round I'll Never Forget, available from Firefly, wherever you get your books. On this day in 1988, the lights were finally turned on at Chicago's Wrigley Field. Since 1935, major league teams had been playing under the lights. When Cincinnati became the first team to illuminate their field on May 24, 1935, major league teams had gradually adopted it until there was one lone holdout. But here's the thing. It's not like the Cubs, and more specifically the Wrigley family who owned the team, were such die-hard purists that they stood in the way of progress for some ideal. At least, not originally. Philip Wrigley had plans in place and the steel purchased to put up lights around the stadium in 1942. But Pearl Harbor was bombed by the Japanese in December of 1941, America was thrust into World War II, and Wrigley donated all the steel that he had purchased to the war effort. Wrigley said, "The stories that we were opposed to night baseball because it would destroy the beauty of the park for daytime baseball are without foundation. It's our job to give the fans what they want, and if we find that they want night baseball, they'll have it." When the war ended and things started to get back to normal, though, Wrigley's stance swung to that more of a purist, and by 1948, the Cubs were the only team in the major leagues without lights, and they had no plans to change that. The initial catalyst to what happened on this day took place in '81, when the Wrigley family sold the team to the Tribune Company. The Tribune Company wanted to build a successful ball club that could compete. Not that the Wrigley family didn't, it's just that word had begun circulating that playing nothing but day games in the warm summer sunshine into the early fall was taking its toll on the team, with some pointing to the collapse of 1969 that began in early September as an example. Then Dallas Green was brought in as general manager. Dallas was a well-respected baseball man who'd been around for a while, and he started lobbying for lights to be added. No more lovable losers. If the Cubs were going to be champs, they needed to catch up with the times and install lights. And then, in 1984, the Cubs were on the brink of the World Series. After taking a 2-0 lead in the National League Championship Series against the San Diego Padres and needing only one more win to advance to the World Series, the Cubs collapsed, losing 3 straight and going home. But there had been contingency plans put in place in case the Cubs made it to the World Series. Now, in '84, the National League representative was set to have home field advantage and play the first 2 games at home during the week. TV was starting to have an effect by the mid-'80s, and Commissioner Bowie Kuhn was not keen on playing day games during the middle of the week and losing that television audience, and said that if Chicago had made the World Series, instead of hosting games 1 and 2, they'd get games 3 and 4 at Wrigley on the weekend instead. Of course, that became a moot point. But the following year, the Cubs were informed that if they made it back to the playoffs, the games were going to be moved to another stadium, one with lights. And that's when the pressure really began to ramp up. The '85 Cubs were a middle-of-the-division team, and therefore they didn't need to pursue a venue change, but hopes were high for a Cubs resurgence, and they didn't want to play their postseason games anywhere else. So after holding out all those years, the Cubs finally installed lights, And then when 91-year-old Cubs superfan Harry Grossman hit the switch to light Wrigley Field, it was the end of one era and the beginning of a new one.
1, a 2, a 3, let there be.
More than 36,000 fans and 500 media members were in attendance on this day. The Cubs were playing the Phillies on this night, which, a little baseball trivia for you here, was the opponent when the lights were turned on for the first time in Cincinnati back in '35. Phil Bradley rocked a Rick Sutcliffe pitch into the bleacher seats and left in the first. Ryne Sandberg hit one in the bottom half to tie it back up. But weather soon moved into the area. Gusty winds, rain, thunder, and lightning suspended play after 3.5 innings with the Cubs up 3-1. When the umpires called the game before it was an official game, it wiped the scoreboard clean, and this game does not even exist in the record books. It's more of a historical footnote. The first official home game under the lights for the Cubs would be played the following night when Chicago beat the New York Mets 6-4. On this day just a year ago, Steph Curry saved the U.S. men's Olympic basketball team from an embarrassing defeat. Now, to be fair, this would not have been as embarrassing as, say, the 1988 loss to the Soviets in Seoul, or the 3 shameful L's that we took in the 2004 Athens Games. But we're the U.S. We're not supposed to lose on the world stage in basketball, even if the team we're playing has Nikola Jokic. This was the semifinal game of the 2024 Paris Olympics, and this game is probably still a bit fresh in your head, so I won't spend too much time on it. Suffice it to say that Serbia came out to play, built a 17-point advantage at one point. Steph had been doing what he normally does. He had 6 threes and 20 points by halftime, but points were not really coming from anywhere else, and so he kept on firing.
Curry, pump, Curry, cash! His 7-3 from downtown. Curry responds. Curry for the lead. Oh, kaboom!
Curry finished the night with 9 threes and 36 points to lead the way. Joel Embiid had 19, LeBron added 16, and Kevin Durant had his 9 points in clutch moments down the stretch, and the U.S. survived the scare with a 99-95 win to advance to the gold medal game against France. And on this day in 1992, it was the 4x100-meter final in Barcelona with the U.S. team of Michael Marsh, Leroy Burrell, Dennis Mitchell, and Carl Lewis as the anchor. And of course, the Americans were the favorites in this event. Lewis was the current world record holder in the 100-meter, so if the baton got to him with a lead, it was a done deal. The U.S. relay team entered the event as both the Olympic record holder and the world record holder.
Now Burrell passes to Dennis Mitchell. Mitchell on the third leg runs the curve, and Mitchell takes off for the U.S. Now here comes the anchor. Carl Lewis awaits the baton. Here's the pass from Mitchell to Lewis, and Lewis sets off down the stretch with the lead. Carl Lewis in his final Olympic Games, blazing to the finish for the U.S. What about the world record? Yes! Yes!
It was sweet redemption for the U.S. team that 4 years earlier in Seoul had not even gotten out of the heats after a poor exchange and a dropped baton ended their chances. However, what used to be an event the U.S. men had a stranglehold on has now become a dry desert. The U.S. men have not medaled in the 4x100 since 2004 in Athens and have not won gold since the 2000 Olympics in Sydney. And time now for today's That's Got Nothing to Do with Sports fun fact. There's a group of unique musicians that formed the Boston Typewriter Orchestra. In 2004, the group came together using typewriters from different eras to bring a specific percussive blend of music to life. Carriage returns, bells, and roller spins add to the unique sound of this group. This has been an original Thrive Suite production.